Type Podcast.
Here we go. Hello, around the block and around the world. This is where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. My name is Dobie Maxwell, representing Type 2, proudly representing Type 1, as always, the vivacious, effervescent, and always in the know, Ms. Sami Parker. We'll get to Sami in seconds, but first, today's episode of JMT is brought to you by the Diabetes app, a free social community app that brings together both Type 1 and Type 2 diabetics, plus their supporters. Find community, resources, and Sami and me on the Diabetes app. Sami, special announcement before we jump into today's episode. We have brand new diabetes diagnosis guides available.
Yes, and you can find the diabetes diagnosis guides for Type 1 and Type 2 diabetes on our website, www.justmytypepodcast.com. Go check it out. It's very helpful. And I think you can find a lot of information for free through these diagnosis guides. So go check it out now.
Sami, today we are going around the world. Sometimes it's around the block. Not today. We're going across the pond to the UK.
I love when we go to the UK because I don't know why it's like my favorite country to go visit. Ever since I went to London, I'm like, I love the UK. So I'm super excited to announce that we have Tom Allison with us, also known as Type 1 Tom. And he is a Type 1 diabetic and is awesome, a diabetes coach. And we're super honored to have him on and join us and just to shed some knowledge on diabetes and everything there is to it. So, hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much. You say you're honored. Honestly, I'm honored to be coming on. Like, I love doing stuff like this through having my own podcast, and I love talking, and I love impacting the community. So thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it's going to be fun.
Well, it's always a pleasure to meet somebody. We always like to throw it down with the diagnosis story because I think that's how diabetics bond. How old were you? How did it happen? What was your blood sugar?
What was your diagnosis story?
Yeah,
mine was.
Did you have to call the police, an ambulance? Did you almost die? Did you see the white light? That kind of stuff.
Oh, no, I love that. I think, it's always good to know people's diagnosis story. And with mine, so I'm currently 35 and I was 21 when I was diagnosed. So it was a late onset for me, really. And I remember at the time, I've always been into the gym and exercising, and I was doing like a cut, so I was trying to lose body fat. And I started feeling like really lethargic and a bit drained and whatever, like all the normal symptoms that we now know are like to Type 1 diagnosis. And I thought, it's just because my calories are really low, I'll be all right. I was going to bed, waking up in the mornings with muscle cramps, spasms, trying to train at the gym, lifting weights, not recovering. And it's one morning I woke up, and you guys will know, like when you get that blurred vision when you first wake up in the morning, but it didn't go. So I was like, these sort of symptoms come on for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, something isn't right here. And I spoke to my mum. Now, my mum used to be a nurse before she had me. She blames me for ruining her nursing career, having me. But I was like, that's your fault, Mum. And it has to come here. So she said, I explained to her, and she knew what it was. She just didn't want to admit it to herself, right? She knew what it was. She just didn't want to admit it. So I was like, you know what? I think she was at work. She was cleaning at the time on the day of diagnosis. And I said to my dad, look, Dad, I'm going to go to the doctors. I had to drive myself because Mum and Dad don't drive. It's only 5 minutes away, but I did have this blurred vision. I had no other way of getting there. I was like, I'm going to the doctors because I know that something's not right. So I go to local doctors near me, and he said, right, okay, just do me a favor. I was like, yeah. He said, go and wee in this sample.
Go wee?
Go and wee in this sample. So you want the urine sample.
Is it a British thing for pee?
Pee, wee and pee. We're just changing.
I'm going to say wee now. I'm going to be like, I'm going wee.
Changing the W and the P.
Wii is an electronic game, isn't it? Like a Wii?
Nintendo Wii.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, but it's
Go and pee in this sample and then bring it back. So I did that, and he did his dipstick thing, and he was like, looking at it. And I was like, what the hell does mean? And then he pricked my finger, and I didn't see the reading. And he said, you're Type 1 diabetic. I was like, oh, crap. And I was like, what's it saying? He was like, it's just saying hi. So you guys will know if you're off the scale, certain only like finger pricks go up to a certain reading, and then it comes up HI. It's definitely not saying hello. It's like saying hi. So it come up that, and he said, right, you're Type 1 diabetic. We're going to ring an ambulance. We're going to get you down to the hospital, which is about 20, 30 minutes away. We're going to get you in there. This is where you need to go. So I went and sat back in the waiting room with my dad, and I'm like thinking all this stuff. And I can be honest with you, you know what the first thought was that went through my head?
What?
What's that?
I'm never going to be able to eat Chinese or Reese's or cheesecake again. That was my first thought.
You're true.
And us just speaking about favorite.
Why Chinese? What are you eating?
We have a true foodie right here.
Definitely.
Well, Chinese food's okay for you, though. That's all vegetables.
I love Chinese food.
Yeah. So, no, that was like my first thought that went through my head was like, diabetics can't eat stuff like that. And I am a proper foodie, as we were discussing before this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, God, like, what am I going to do? So that was one of my first thoughts. And then I think I was still really overwhelmed and baffled with the information. So I get in the ambulance, we get to the hospital, and I was only in there 2 nights.
Okay.
The first night was spent just them putting me on a sliding scale of insulin, coming around every couple of hours, testing my levels.
Did they tell you what your blood sugar was? Like when you got there, did they tell you what your blood sugar
was? It was 36 moles.
Which is like...
so we work in moles here, so I'm going to do... That is... I'll do that conversion for you now.
Oh, thanks, Tom. It's so kind to you.
It is... Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
648 milligram per deciliter.
Good.
Oh my
Lord,
God.
I think you got the record, buddy. We had our guests on before. That's amazing. I'm surprised you weren't dead. That's Coma City.
Yeah. But, saying quite luckily, I didn't have any ketones, which was odd. And I wasn't what they would describe as an ill diabetic. Yes, I have muscle aches. I was urinating all the time, which was another thing. My vision
No,
was
you were
blurred.
weeing.
Yeah. I was peeing all the time.
You were the king of wee.
Yes.
Tom, that was like me too. I didn't have like any like traumatic... Dobie had a traumatic experience.
Yeah, if you get a chance, listen to the diagnosis story. We won't go into it, buddy. But as a guy, you will totally, you'll feel good about yourself.
Tom, you'll die.
I'm going to check that out.
We had some malfunctioning happening in the mill.
I almost lost my
parts over there.
giblets.
I'll have to listen to that. But yeah, I think like the following day, they sent a DSM round, and it was cool. He was type 1 himself, so DSM an endo. He come round and he bought with me a blood testing kit. He bought me my insulin pens at the time, so I was on Lantus, Glargine, and Nova Rapid. And he was like, right, this is your blood testing kit.
Yeah.
You need to prick your finger before you eat, after you eat, and what have you. And then he was like, this insulin is a background insulin. You need to do this at 10 p.m. every evening. And this insulin is a fast-acting one, and you're going to have this with food, with every meal. I was like, okay, so I was like completely overwhelmed still. All this information that I wasn't taking in.
Yeah.
I stayed in there overnight. They got my levels back into range, rehydrated me on a drip, and then sent me home. And the first night, I remember, I actually went and ate Chinese. That first night coming out of hospital, I went and ate Chinese. And
How did it taste? Oh,
Just to
it's
prove
so
yourself.
good.
it tasted amazing.
He's like proving to himself, I can't eat Chinese.
Little did I know about split bolusing, the prolonged effects of fats on carbohydrates, and I knew nothing about it. I was just diagnosed. And we didn't have a community like this or information out there like this then, like 14 years ago. So I actually had that as a first meal, but I was completely overwhelmed and kind of baffled.
Yeah.
But I think I took my mind off accepting it through throwing myself in to learn about the condition. Because I've got an obsessive personality. When I want something, I'll do everything in my power to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same with being diagnosed, coming away, being like, right, I'm going to do research, I'm going to run tests. And that kind of kept my mind away from actually accepting this huge life change, which did come back up to like bite me in the butt later on down the line.
One word that came up, I think, in my diagnosis, and it didn't come up in Sammy's, is fear. I didn't hear you say fear. You're worried about not getting the food that you wanted. I thought it was a death sentence getting type 2. It's like diabetes. Other people get that. Did you have any fear at all that, oh my God, it could shorten my life?
Yeah, I think after when I started, the first few weeks was spent just trying to like deal with it a little bit and learn about it. And when that subsided a little bit, I think fear did start to set in once I started researching and reading things. Bad thing, guys, like don't research too heavily on the internet. And if you do, be careful what you bloody read. Yeah, because there's a lot of like crap, if I may say so, out there. And that did kind of scare me. Looking at these stories, people with these complications, I was like, oh my days. So that's the end of like that started to put the fear into me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
From like seeing these stories and stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like my fear came in when I would start to like realize like, okay, I don't know why. Like it would, like how you said, delayed fats with carbohydrates. And so I'd be like, okay, wait, what did I do wrong? Like that was when my fear would set in, when I was like, why is my blood sugar 300? Like I took the right insulin. I did everything. Now it's damaging my body. Like, how do I get it down? And it was like more like in the moment. And then even like, you know, my biggest fear moments were when I'd go to my endocrinologist, because I had an endocrinologist for a long time that was like, it was like the moment of truth, A1C. And I just remember thinking the A1C was like the big bad monster. And then when I discovered like time and range, I was like, I like this a lot better because I felt like that was honestly when I'd have anxiety. When they'd be like, your A1C is, and then it was like, bah, 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 and I'd be like, and they were like 8.5. And then I would just, the
Too
tears are going. And
high,
I was like, I don't
too
know what else
low.
to do. But Tom, can you kind of like talk about, if you don't mind, what an A1C is, A1C and time and range?
Yeah. So that is, I think it's becoming, well, let's go back a few years ago, like when I was diagnosed. A1C, HbA1c was the measure of how well we're controlling our diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's very flawed in my opinion because it's a 3-month average.
Totally.
So let's say we're getting big spikes and big drops, and these drops, these lows that we're having more frequently, that would equate to someone having a low HbA1c. But we know, we'll get on time and range in a second, that you're having a lot of lows, but you've got a low HbA1c, which isn't the best. This is why it's so flawed, I believe, and this is coming round now more popular since we've had access to things like Libras, Dexcoms, Medtronic sensors.
Yeah.
With the time in range. And it is like too many type 1s place their emotional health on a number of a HbA1c, and it's a 3-month average. And it's like I always say to clients, 3 months is a long time. We cannot control what happens in a 3-month period. We can control day to day, which we can see in replication of time in target range.
Yeah, it's almost like a fake number because I'm like, you also could like, I mean, it's the average. So I'm like, you could have a blood sugar of 300 and then, a blood sugar of 50. And then the mean blood sugar is going to come out maybe 175, but it's like, that's not even remotely accurate.
Yeah.
So it's just a fake. Exactly. That's how I thought.
Do you think with all the technology advancements that have happened in the past 20 years, even not 10 years, they'll find a better thing than the A1C to make it more accurate and more realistic? Like Sami said, an average can be way off, way misleading.
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah, with it. But like you say, let's say someone has half a month or a month and a half, it's like high, say it's 300. And then the other month and a half, it's like 90. Well, they might have a good A1C, but they've spent a month and a half running on the higher end and then running on the lower end, if that makes sense. And I think, now definitely. So one thing that I focus quite heavily on with myself and with my clients is the day-to-day stuff, because that's more in our power and it's more controllable than us focusing on a 3-month average. So I'd just be looking at things like average glucose and time in range for the day. Time in range is a huge one, but then it is difficult for us as diabetics because our numbers are the only way to kind of see how well we're controlling it. But then it's that fine line of between being too emotionally invested and not being enough emotionally invested, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Me and Dobie have talked about it. It plays, Dobie says, find in your groove, find in the groove. And like, that was more based kind of on like moderation with different things. But I think it applies even to this because it's like, you have to find like, what's the level that works great for you and is still a healthy amount versus like, what's the point? Like, I know sometimes I'll start looking at my Dexcom and I'm like aggressively looking at it on my phone and I just keep looking and it'll be like 250 and I'm like, when's it going down? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, Samantha, you need to put the phone down and you need to like do something else because you can't change how fast the insulin's going to work and you can't change it. So now you're like getting in your head. But I think it's very fine balance there of like a healthy mindset and consistency. It's another thing. I think consistency is huge, but versus like only focusing on it to where you're like sick of it.
Yeah, definitely. Agree with that. And I think that's why a lot of diabetics can struggle. And I mean, I can say this because I've been there like with mental health issues as well. I mean, I spoke about my diagnosis. I thought I'd accepted it. I hadn't. And then about 6 to 8 months down the line is when my first bout of depression hit. And it was because I didn't really truly accept it. I just threw my mental space into learning about the condition and didn't really accept it. And I think seeing these numbers can be, like you say, a hindrance for a lot of us diabetics because we do just base our kind of emotional worth on these numbers and it can become an obsession as well. Yes. You know what I mean? With it, like you say, watching these numbers, looking at it rising, looking at it dropping. And something I'm big on with myself and my clients, I'm like, you've got to control the controllables. How fast we rise, how fast we drop, how quick the insulin's going to work, it's out of our control. Things that are in our control is things like obviously testing so you do know where you're at, being active, eating well, managing stress, getting sleep, working on your mindset. These are things that we can control that will ultimately lead us towards good numbers.
And educating is a part of yourself, educating yourself.
Yeah, that's a huge one, the knowledge and education.
Dobie's been doing great.
Yeah, I've been walking. I'm wearing out shoes. I'm walking so much. When I first got diagnosed, we talked about fear. I was scared to death, and I walked and I changed my diet around. And in 3 months, I was off all insulin. And the doctor's like, "Wow, you're 1 in 100, 1 in 500." And then, of course, I thought, well, I'm cured now, so I can eat anything I want to. So I would eat, Reese's peanut butter cups and whole wheat ding dongs and everything that I thought, and I was right back in it. So now it's been 11 years, and this show has caused me to get back into the groove, hopefully to inspire listeners.
Are you looking for your new favorite sugar-free snack? What about some low glycemic cookies or no sugar chocolate? Natural Market is Canada's #1 source for sugar-free, gluten-free, vegan, and allergen-friendly groceries and snacks, with new items hitting their website every day. They focus on bringing you a high-quality selection of goodies for all dietary needs, all organized on their website and delivered conveniently straight to your door with the eco-friendly protective packaging. And get this, right now you can save 22% off your entire order if you use coupon code SUMMER22 in your cart. With free shipping over $49, you can choose better food today with naturalmarket.ca.
The Diabetes app is an online community platform that was created to help people living with diabetes find support and information in one spot.
On the Diabetes app, you can join groups and connect with other people all over the world and find tips that actually make a difference.
And now, while you're using the app, you can collect points and earn rewards.
Wait, you're confusing me. What do you mean?
What I mean is the Diabetes app now gives you points anytime you like, comment, or post. You can collect these points and exchange them for rewards. We're talking promo codes, accessories, and more free gifts.
Whoa, I like the sound of that. So you're saying I can earn free rewards just for doing what I already do?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Keep using the Diabetes app, connect with others, find tips, and get rewarded for doing so. We are back, just my type. She is Sami Parker. My name's Dobie Maxwell. Joining us across the pond, as they say, blokes, lads, bangers and mash. It's from the UK. Tom Allison here. Type 1 Tom. It's so funny because we think we know here in the States what it's like to be in the UK. UK people get an idea what it's like to be in the States, and it's totally wrong. I've never been over there. I'd love to. You got to come over here and see what it's like. What is your impression of what's like life in the States or even Canada?
I just want to come over for all the food choices that you guys get. Like we were saying before, that would be, as soon as I got off that plane, I would be there to get a burger, to get some Reese's. That'd be me. That'd be my first sort of goal.
We're going to rename your Instagram to like Type 1 Foodie.
Yeah.
Foodie duty. I want to come over there to get free insurance, the government paid health insurance.
Yes.
I think it's not free. Anyway, I want to touch on, Tom, if you don't mind. You're a coach. I'm a comedian by trade. I have a class and one-on-one. I coach up-and-coming comedians. And I really like being a mentor and a teacher, but everybody's different. So do you have a method of reading somebody? Because some people are not going to listen to what you say. They're going to fight you. And it's not you. You're trying to get them to be healthy. Do you have any tips for maybe aspiring coaches or how you do it? What do you do?
Yeah, say the first point of call. So anyone that reaches out to me for help, I ask them some pre-qualifying questions. If I think gauging from that I can actually help them, I will jump on a phone call with them to dive deeper. That's what I do, because at the end of the day, I can't help everyone and anyone, like you said yourself. Some people just aren't coachable. Some people don't really understand what they want or actually want the help when you dive deep. But some people do. And they're the people, because it does take a lot of mental energy, emotional investment in these people, because I care about my clients. Like, I want every single one of them to win. If they don't, that's on me.
Yeah.
So it would be wrong for me to bring someone into the program that I was like, I'm not too sure I can actually help you. So it is pre-qualifying questions I ask. So basically, some that I asked is, what's their biggest struggle with the diabetes right now? To see if I actually have got the solution for that problem. And then what is their number one goal right now? Yeah, just to kind of know that they know what they want and they kind of me to get an understanding of what they're struggling with. From that, I would then happily jump on a call with them. And the main things about this call is so I can get to know them and they can get to know me as well. Because it's a relationship. Like, it's not just when you're coaching someone, you're building a relationship that sometimes is deeper than a friendship with them.
Yeah,
sure.
Because it's a big understanding, like that we're both type 1s, we're connected in that way, but it's connecting with people and it's knowing how to move people towards their goal without making them feel like crap about themselves. That's the key.
Yeah, and I think that's really tricky. And I feel like people either have that as like a coach, like the quality, or they don't. And it's the same thing with the client. They are either coachable or they're not. But I think it's hard too when you have diabetes yourself, because you're like even for me, I remember being in middle school, and when I was diagnosed, like I was just so out there with it. Like I was just taking shots forever, and I'd be in the nurse's office and the other girls like weren't like that. And I was like, why aren't they like that? And it drove me crazy. I was like, you guys, like, I'll do it with you, like how we do it together. I said that to one of the girls, like, well, let's do it together. And I remember like I was trying to make it a funny, but then I never bothered her again. And then eventually, like 3 years later, she did it. But like it's so hard because you want to just fix it for them. And like you can't. It's a process and a way of going about it.
Definitely. No, with that, I mean, people that I coach come in at all different angles. Some of them struggle with acceptance, which I understand because I did. I just didn't realize until it hit me in the bum, like that I did.
In the bum while you're weeing.
Yeah, when I was weeing, hit me in the bum.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be using that for the rest of my life. I'm giving you credit.
So some of them, they might have been newly diagnosed. They've not even had a chance to accept it. Some of them I've helped. I've had it for 40 and 50 years and just fallen into bad habits. But like I say, it's just a case of making sure who's coachable. And I would go as far as saying, I want my clients to win probably more than they want to win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. We talk
Totally.
about fear.
That makes sense.
Do you experience people that have shame and embarrassment? There's nothing to be ashamed about. It's a disease. But I think that's a big thing. Sami and I talk about that in other episodes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Definitely. So I do a lot of posts on my social media and stuff like that because a lot of the type ones that jump on the phone with me have like, at the start, like, I'm really nervous, Tom. I'm like, why are you nervous? You've honestly got nothing to be nervous about. I care. I'm here to help you. Do you know what I mean? That's why we're having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the nervous, the majority of the time, 9 times out of 10, because they've got a fear of being judged and feeling bad. They think, because I'm a coach, I must have amazing control all the time and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the case. I have good and bad days. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's not the case.
Totally.
And with caring, like, I'm not there to pass judgment. I'm there to help. And that can cause a lot of fear with people putting a hand up to reach out for help and stuff like that. And I don't think I'm not saying anything bad about like endos or DSNs, but sometimes a lot of type 1s will worry about going to their endo or the DSN because they're in fear of being judged based on their numbers.
That was me.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's judging. Like, it was terrible. I would literally cry on the way there and on the way back. And what was funny is like, I tested my blood sugar. Like, I did everything right in terms of like caring. So it was like the fact that I was anxious, like I was like, imagine somebody else who knows that they're not checking a ton or whatever. It's like the anxiety shoots through the roof regardless. And I think that's why it's so awesome now with the diabetes community, because it's like, log on Instagram and somebody's putting like, yeah, I'm 400, don't know why. And you're like, oh, I'm 200. Makes me feel good. But I think there's a happy medium there.
Yeah.
And as a coach, I'm sure it's a little tricky.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think fear is reverting back to fear. Like fear is a good thing because it means that we care. But there's a way of using that fear to drive you forward to become better. Instead of just sitting in it and kind of dwelling, use it to drive you forward and become better, which is something that, like, there's a certain way to get people to move, and you have to create a sort of, by move, I mean move towards better glucose control, better health, better them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of install a little bit of fear and get a little bit of emotions out of them to paint a picture to why they're not moving towards that goal. And as a coach, that's what basically my job is to do. And it's to paint that picture of what will happen if you don't, but what will happen if you do. But you can't just say to someone, if you don't do this, you're going to get X, Y, and Z, because people repel. That's not a way to beat someone. And you can't make someone feel bad because they're going to repel. They're not going to listen to you. So there's a certain way to do it whilst making them feel good, whilst leading them along the right path, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that people come to you and they confide in you with their biggest problems, their biggest struggles. What's a main thing that people struggle with when they come to you for the first time? Maybe someone listening could say, hey, I have that too.
Yeah, I'd say on an overall level is knowledge and understanding of the condition, of type 1 diabetes and the condition. And another one is consistency. They're probably two of the biggest things: knowledge and understanding and consistency. And if we're getting on so that's like a large level. If we're dialing it back to a small level, it's understanding ratios, like basal insulin, bolusing, all that sort of stuff is another big thing that a lot of type 1s don't really know how to test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Dobie, like a basal and a bolus. So a bolus is like how much insulin you're taking for either like a correction or food, mostly food. And a basal is basically just your 24-hour insulin levels.
I was just going to say, Tom, you mentioned that your mom was a nurse.
Yeah.
And Sami's parents are very supportive. I'm a homeless waif, by myself since I was 17. I'm not looking for sympathy, but I think a lot of people, diabetes is so random, it can affect anybody. So if somebody doesn't have a family structure, doesn't know what to do, how should they go about looking for a coach? And if they're type 2, are there type 2 coaches? You're a type 1 coach. How can they find somebody?
I'd say Instagram is amazing. Like, that's a platform that I managed to have a lot of impact on and help people on. So Instagram, Facebook, community groups as well. I will say a thing about our community is amazing. I'm going to be total, open and honest here. Our community is amazing. It is supportive. They have got your back. Do you know what I mean? They'll answer questions, but you've got to be careful about where you go, because in some communities, there's a lot of victimized mindsets. And if you hang around that will drag you down. So go to, people on Instagram, go to community groups on Facebook, but have a look first and make sure that they're actually helping and they're positive and their message is strong and good. And it's not sitting in of a victimized mindset, because that will pull you down, and we do not want that.
I completely
So say
agree.
if you are alone, you feel alone living with it, find communities on Facebook, find people on Instagram that motivate and inspire you. Reach out to them, be social, ask questions. Because even like me, I'm not bothered, reach out to me. Do you know what I mean? I will quite happily have a chat with people about it. So yeah, that would be my main point. Just be careful on where you're going when you're hanging out.
I would just say there's a lot of wrong information out there. And I'll say in a friendly and a customer service kind of way. Some people, not all, some people are idiots and they love to hear their own voice. And they know what you should be eating. Sam and I talk about it all the time. People without diabetes especially. You can't eat that. Well, can I see your doctor license, please? Your certificate, your diploma?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I just think it's all hearsay and, fluff.
Oh, yeah. Agree with that. I mean, it's like if you post something like you've got a condition on Facebook or something, then every bloody person is a medical professional. Do you know what I mean? You just got to be careful with it, yeah.
Sammy, this episode's coming to an end, and we're all in different time zones across the planet. So Tom is late afternoon, you're early morning, I'm ready for lunch. And we're talking about food today. Let's get the question of the pod and get on out of here.
Yeah, so Tom, what is the question of the pod that we're going to ask everybody?
I love this, guys, because I'm such a foodie, as we spoke about a lot in this episode. I want to know what your favorite food is. Let's go for, guys, should we go for dessert or main meal?
Let's go dessert. Baby. Let's put the pedal to the metal.
Okay. Favorite dessert. What is your favorite dessert? We want to know.
Dobie, what is yours?
My favorite dessert, we'll go back to our episode with Billy Gardell from Mike and Molly, pizza or donuts. Donuts are pretty good, especially the ones with the chocolate gooey filling.
I actually do love donuts. Like a nice cinnamon twist. I'm like, yes.
Oh, the chocolate frosting. It's got to have frosting in it.
Oh.
I want my blood sugar to have a comma in it. What about you?
Tom, what's yours?
I would say Lotus Biscoff brownies. There's a bakery near me and it is amazing. I will ship you some out. It is the best. They are the best brownies ever. So Lotus Biscoff brownies.
Okay, have to try those. Sammy, we got to do a field trip over to the UK to Manchester.
Love it. Yes, mine's like a good frozen yogurt. I'm like, yes. I love my frozen yogurt.
Yeah, well, I'll be the realist here.
You've gone relatively healthy on us. What's you done to us?
We buy the ice cream. Okay, so guys, you can answer the question of the pod and you can rate, review, please, and give us a 5-star rating just so we can get the diabetes community together and start the conversation, spark it, and get educated, engaged, and entertained. And you can find Tom Allison, again, at type1_Tom on Instagram. He has great content, great coaching skills. He's amazing. We're stoked to have him on. So thank you again, Tom, for coming on and joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
And you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at JustMyTypePod_, Facebook at JustMyTypePod, and our hashtag JustMyTypePod.
We love that you listened. Thank you for growing the diabetic community. If you need a coach, check out Tom or check out somebody else. There's no shame in having it. We're all in here together. We're a community. We love you. Sammy, we're done with another episode. Let's put a cherry on the sundae, kid.
All right. Say la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.